available. So many.
Indeed. Well, we're going to be exploring a number of those options. We've now reached the top of the hour, so I'd like to welcome everyone to our webinar, which is Self-Service Strategies for Your Contact Center. Delighted to be joined by two excellent speakers. Delighted to be joined for his first webinar with us, Colleen Taylor from the Taylor Reach Group. And Colleen, the Taylor Reach Group is a contact center consultancy business.
Correct. Yeah, we are a call and contact center consulting firm. We are based in Toronto. We work predominantly in North America, though do some projects internationally. We're vendor agnostic, so nobody gets to pay us but our clients, and each of our consultants has at least 20 years experience managing, leading, or running call and contact centers. So we've sort of been there, done that. Yeah.
And delighted to be joined for her third webinar with us by Tamsin Dollin from Nice in Contact. Tamsin, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Good morning.
And Nice in Contact, probably best known as a sort of cloud-based contact center routing platform.
Yeah, a few of you may have heard of us before. So I work for Nice in Contact, and our product is CX1. It's the most complete, unified, and intelligent cloud customer experience platform.
Wonderful. Well, just a bit of housekeeping. If you want to watch today's webinar on replay, that'll be available in about 2 hours' time. callcenterhelper.com/recorded webinars. We're carrying on the discussion today in the chat room, and the address for that is callcenterhelper.com/chat. So just put that into a window in your browser. Put in your first name, last name, and email. And once you're logged in, you should be able to download the webinar slides, which are on this link here, or you could download the chat log if you want to. A lot of people, it does come up in a separate window, so a lot of people do put the chat room on one side of their screen, the webinar slides on the other side of the screen, and then between the two, you can see both things as they're going on. There is an added advantage for being in the chat room, that we have a bottle of champagne or a box of chocolates for the best tip. Is a bottle of champagne. We seem not able to keep chocolates in the office, but we do ship them off all around the world. Or if you prefer an Amazon gift card, we could ship that off to you as well. So if you use #question in the chat room if you want a question, #tip if you want to raise a tip, or just chat away and we'll try and figure out where it goes, which would be good. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to start off with a poll, and I'd like to understand some of the motivations for self-service in your organization, and which would you say is the primary driver for self-service in your organization? I know there might be a number, but if you want to pick which one you think is probably the most important in your organization, is it cost reduction? Is it because customer preference, customers prefer to do self-service? Is it to improve customer experience? Is it to provide out-of-hours service? Or is it just to generally reduce the amount of effort that a customer has to put in? So I'd just like to vote in on this. Colin, any thoughts of what's like to come out top?
No, I think that there are those are all the topics we regularly see. In terms of drivers, everyone is all excited about AI and want to try and automate everything. I don't think that quite works yet. I don't think AI is quite there, but a great set of questions.
Well, let's have a look on the results. Well, very encouragingly, 49% view it as for improving customer experience, and perhaps only 37% for cost reduction. And yet everything you read on self-service that often gets written is all about reducing costs, which to my mind is the wrong way of doing it. 9% reducing customer effort and 4% customer preference. Tamsin, are you pleased with those results?
I think that's very encouraging. I think it's fantastic. I mean, we talk about the cost reduction and reducing call volumes, but it's not just about that. And we're going to talk a bit today about having a blended strategy that really looks at the technology side and and the agent experience and the customer's experience as well, and just up-leveling all of that. So very encouraging that that's what people are really driven by, that customer experience, improving that.
Wonderful. And there's a sample size of 102 on that poll, which is wonderful. So good chance now to hand the baton across to Colleen Taylor. And Colleen, if you can take us through your thoughts on developing self-service strategies for the contact center.
Yeah, Johnny, thank you very, very much. Happy to do so. As as the topic is self-service. I remember, 20 some odd years ago, we were starting to implement self-service in the IVRs with the DTMF and press 1 for this and 2 for that. There's been a huge evolution in the industry, and what we're really seeing now is self-service being wrapped up in sort of the entire bundle of artificial intelligence and AI. So what I'm going to do is sort of walk through my presentation and really talk about how self-service and artificial intelligence are impacting on the contact center. So, want to talk briefly through some of the history and background. I'll try not to bore anyone with with stories of my life. We'll talk about some definitions and concepts, which I think are helpful to advance any discussion around self-service and AI. The challenges that organizations are facing as they look to leverage self-service, how organizations can best get started if they're looking at making a major push in this area, some common applications, the evaluation process, and some partners, and then I will wrap up with just some tips and guidance, which I hope folks will find helpful. So if we look at AI specifically, it really started in the late 50s and early 60s. Some of the first applications were playing games. I remember, I was amazed that you could actually play chess on a gaming system. That to me just sort of blew me away. I didn't play any better on the gaming system, but I was able to play. Speech recognition, that sort of came about in the mid to late 80s. I remember we went in '87 and did our first speech recognition project for a client. At the time I was working in the BPO industry, and it actually cost us $500 for each word we wanted to create and add to the vocabulary, because we needed to send people across the country to record samples of that word so that we could reflect regional differences and accents and tonality. As you can imagine, at $500 a word, we had a very, very small vocabulary, and you can compare that today to Alexa, that I think has got 500,000 or 600,000 names and words and phrases in the vocabulary set. In the late 90s, we started to see workflow automation take place, being able to kick off programmed routines that allowed greater efficiency and eliminated some of the tasks from the agents themselves in the contact center. And today, natural language processing is really allowing conversational AI to exist and to understand the human language, which is a really significant breakthrough. So in terms of whoops, what did I just do? My apologies. I've just gone and lost my screen. There we go. So you can still see the screen. Okay. Yeah, my apologies. So the definitions I have there on the screen are the first definition of AI that was coined in 1956 for artificial intelligence. And really, customer self-service is often defined as some form of electronic support that allows customers, callers, or end users to leverage technology to perform routine activities. And traditionally, we have seen those self-service activities be based around simple, low complexity tasks and challenges. So some of the basic concepts, I mentioned the natural language processing a moment ago, and really that's the enabler for virtual assistants if we think Siri or Alexa. It's also the driving force behind IVRs, because it's really a form of AI that extracts meaning from the human language, which can then be used to make decisions. That works on the voice side. If we look at natural language understanding, we tend to be speaking there about a sort of a subtopic of NLP, which deals with machine reading comprehension. So very useful in understanding and taking meaning out of unstructured data, for example, emails or chat logs. Machine learning, that's the subset of AI that really leverages mathematical models, based on sample data or training data to drive learning and progress. Of course, the quality of your training data is really critical here. If your training data, your sample data isn't representative, or if there's any bias inherent in the training data, you will end up not learning quite what you wanted to learn, as I think Microsoft found last year with a fully automated a bot that they deployed for a few weeks online. Robotic process automation, or RPA, really allows AI to leverage tasks and activities that are traditionally completed by human beings. So the simplest amongst those would be cutting and pasting. So oftentimes we find that contact centers operate with multiple systems, and they need to move data from entered into one system, and then it's got to be propagated in another system. Our RPA can facilitate that. It can automatically pull the data once it's populated out of one and put it into another. It can kick off or launch a workflow. In the example of my mortgage experience, it actually took the information which I had communicated through natural language processing to the virtual assistant, and then it took all that appropriate data that impacted on the mortgage agreement, populated that data, and then actually sent that to me. At the same point, I'm sure it submitted it to an internal evaluation program that tried to determine whether or not they still thought I was creditworthy. But that would be an application of RPA. So really those four areas of natural language processing, natural language understanding, machine learning, and RPA tend to be the basic building blocks for AI, specifically as it relates to contact centers. And some of the most popular ways that these are being leveraged today is through chatbots, and I'm sure all of us have had the chance to play with those. Some of the chatbots are smarter, some of them are not so smart. And that really comes down to the quality of the data and the source of the data that they are leveraging. Chatbots are difficult to do all things, to be all things to all people, and many organizations that deploy them successfully actually try and leverage a number of different chatbots for different types of inquiries, where they know that the data set being required is going to be directly associated and available to that. Voice bots, just take a chatbot effectively and overlay a text-to-speech capability. So think, think Amazon Lex, and think the IVR and the virtual assistants that are leveraging NLP today. The organizational challenges that we find, we talk to clients about why, what they are wanting to do and what challenges they're trying to solve in the contact center through self-service and AI. Typically, they're trying to look at sort of that 80-20 rule of what are the high volume but low complexity tasks and activities that we're asking our agents and our frontline staff to deal with, because these are going to be expensive. And these are typically tasks, if the complexity is low, then the client sensitivity to AI or acceptance of self-service is much higher. Highly complex tasks or tasks involving my money, and I probably want to speak to an individual, but things that are low level of complexity are things that frankly I assume that a bot is going to be able to do for me. So the opportunity is then, of course, to move those high volume, low complexity tasks away from a live agent, freeing them up to handle the more complex and complicated tasks and activities. Of course, it's, having those high volume, low complexity tasks in your queue is going to ensure that the queue times and the wait times and the time to serve is longer. It can also, frustrate clients as well. So while cost reduction didn't score particularly well on the poll, it didn't come out on top, but it is a way that organizations can reduce cost by being able to move some of those high volume tasks away. And customer expectations are shifting. We expect that we can get virtually instantaneous answers to just about any questions just by saying, "Hey, Google." So organizations that are still forcing folks through to a live agents for tasks that the customers believe should be handled through automation creates a frustration and a disconnect in expectations between the agent and the organization. So some of the approaches, self-service tasks, typically are originating today from a contact center perspective, either on the website or on the IVR. In many cases, the same APIs and the same data sources are employed for both. So early examples of self-service would have been things like telephone banking, online banking, order tracking. I remember our client Alda was very excited when they could take their #1 call type, which was "Where is my order?" as people were ordering shoes and boots, and being able to deflect that to self-service and get a capture rate of more than 90%. That made a significant difference to their staffing model. Today, we're seeing far more complex capabilities thanks to NLP, machine learning, RPA, etc. And that can give you the very robust types of activities which organizations are completing today. And sorry, my apologies, getting started. So where do you begin on this journey? Well, successful contact center self-service design requires a structured and formal process. Winging it is generally not a good idea. But typical areas of opportunity that we see our clients doing is looking to improve their IVR containment. There's a lot of folks out there using interactive voice response systems that aren't exactly state of the art, maybe a little more state of the art. And as a result, they're still functioning predominantly in DTMF or very rudimentary speech recognition. And the opportunity to improve your containment or the ability to resolve inquiries in the IVR, and then also your ability to improve your call routing or your call steering from the IVR to a live agent when that human touch is required is a big area of opportunity. We're also seeing the fact that self-service and capturing data and information in the IVR, while it isn't always successful, it isn't always contained, we are capturing a great deal of data, and through AI applications, we're actually able now to share that data with the agent. So, for example, a caller is entering data to get an insurance quote, with a virtual assistant or through a chat bot, and then ultimately they leave the chat, or they stop the research, or there's a long pause that can trigger an offer to speak to an agent. And if they accept that, then all of the information captured by the chatbot or the IVR is automatically sent to the agent, which means the agent now has the ability of reviewing what is what's already taken place, and doesn't have to ask those same questions time and time again. Caller authentication. If you can authenticate a customer in the IVR, if you can prove that they're them, you're going to save a bunch of time on the call. Typically 90 seconds. But for that really to be attractive to organizations, you need to have high repeat call volume. If somebody's just phoning once and only ever calls you once, you'll never get the chance to authenticate them online for the second call. Contextual understanding through better information about what's already taken place in their online session or through the chatbot or through the IVR increases first contact resolution rate. There is just a plethora of benefits that can accrue here. And part of that also, it just stems from the fact that if agents are able to focus on more complex activities, they become better at dealing with those more complex activities as well. Things like agent-side automation, such as single sign-on or real-time coaching or procedure and process guides, can also dramatically improve ROIs, or return on investment. And while those are not client or customer facing applications for AI, they do enable the agents to have a better resolution and a better interaction with a customer that tends to support increased customer satisfaction and CSAT and NPS scores. Chatbots, of course, we're all pretty familiar with them. They're great at dealing with basic queries. Your key is what training data they've used. And they're used by a lot of organizations to extend service availability. And chatbots are also becoming voice bots. They're being voice enabled. We're seeing that through virtual assistants and through really a fundamental repositioning of IVR from a press 1 for this to just tell me what you want to do. And the systems have a contextual understanding because of their integrations through to CRM systems, et cetera, to really help the customers and callers. So my guidance in terms of the typical evaluation process you want to work through, you need to review your contact center processes for automation opportunities. What are those high value or high volume, low complexity? You need to understand what your data sources are, because that represents a risk if you don't have good quality data. You'll need to identify who your target audience is and what the automation opportunity is around frequency and cost of interaction to help you build that ROI. You'll want to document your use case in sort of stories, because that helps understanding for others in the organization. We typically recommend stack ranking your opportunities, identify one that really makes a lot of sense and has a high value, and then look at rolling that out into a pilot, which you can implement and then iterate moving forward. There are tons of organizations out there in this space. Tamsin's going to be talking, about NICE inContact, which certainly has got a lot of great capabilities there. We all know Alexa. We all, a number of folks probably are familiar with Dialogflow from Google. Nuance has been a pioneer in the voice processing space for many years, and today I think powers a number of the top 100 Fortune 100 firms. And sort of my key strategies for you to keep in mind as you move forward and go down this journey is keep it simple. The most common failure I see is organizations that try and build one bot to do everything, and the one bot to rule them all doesn't really function. You need to start simple, start small, build one thing at a time. Don't try and boil the ocean, and look for those contact types where you're going to get the best return on investment. Context is critical here, so understand where the data is going to reside to provide the contextual understanding, and make sure you have that data hygiene and data quality high. And lastly, look at visual. If you're running mobile apps, a visual IVR is often overlooked, but it's still a great opportunity to help folks short circuit that call tree or IVR. And that's my presentation. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that, Colin. Some great talking points there. Certainly self-service, very, very salient to go for high volume and low complexity. I see a lot of applications where it's attempted to almost do it the other way around. So I think that's a very good starting point. Start self-service with a formal and structured process. So because self-service needs a good structure. And I guess one of the problems with chatbots is that if you just jam me in a chatbot, a lot of those processes won't be formal and won't be structured. So it's difficult. It's fine for something like, I guess, a search box where you understand that not all results are going to be good. And then third key point there, Colin, improve the handoff to a real person when the self-service isn't working. I think that's certainly a very good advice. And one of the big ones that I've often struggled with on say voice recognition, they hear me in the office where I'm going, no. After the first no, it really, did you mean this? No. At that point, you should almost put me straight through to an advisor.
Exactly.
So let's have a look at what everyone's been saying in the chat room. Have a look at some of the tips coming through. So Darren has said, as head of customer service, I think this was in response to our poll on the main driver. As head of customer services, my preference is for improved customer experience. However, my bosses feel a little differently. My argument is always that improved customer experience leads to a cost reduction, but it's a tough sell. So I think it's really about where the main drivers are. And I think if you're always doing it with improving customer experience in mind, then that's certainly going to be one of the key ones. But ultimately, saving money is probably the easiest way to get it funded. Here's a tip in from Hannah. Hannah says, make sure the self-service option is clear to the customers. Offer a frequently asked question area and keep monitoring the inquiries you have so you can update the FAQs so they're relevant. Also direct to certain points of the site when replying to their queries, making sure you answer queries but direct them to the correct place for future reference. Colin, that's quite a good way of promoting some of the self-service.
Yes, I would agree that's a great tip. And you also want, we'd much rather teach them to fish than hand them fish every day, right? So we do need to gently try and train our customers, and being able to put them to the right place or show them where to find that answer helps in that educational journey.
So here's an interesting question from Laura. And Laura says, how do you get customers to use self-service instead of picking up the phone? We have thousands of FAQs on our website that answer the vast majority of questions we get. So we're trying to figure out how to drive more customers to them. Now, Tamsin, this is an interesting question. I guess what I often see is a lot of the call volume coming into the call center actually comes as a result of people who've been on the website and not been able to find the answers there. What's your thought on this one?
So yeah, I saw this comment come up, and I'm an FAQ junkie. I'll just admit it. I really love a good FAQ. It's no good when they're stale and they're not up to date. You get an FAQ that's just looks like it was written 5 years ago. It sounds like Laura's comment here is that they've got fantastic FAQs, probably updating them and keeping them up there. No one's using them, or there's not enough use. So my suggestion there is to make sure that it's intuitive where they are placed on the website, and be proactive and letting, really, like you said, training your customer on your consumers on where to find this stuff, because if they don't know it's there, they're not going to necessarily look. So it may be just the opposite, like of what you said, that people going to the FAQ first, not finding it, then picking up the phone. It sounds like in Laura's case, they're picking up the phone because they don't know there's an amazing FAQ out there. So it's about making it intuitive, putting it in an intuitive place, and making sure that there's awareness.
And Colin, is this an area where search engine optimization comes in? Because it's often been left to the marketing to get all the nice sales content, but often there's never really any thought about what are the keywords that people are entering in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point, Jonty. SEO allows us to flag those keywords and then to direct them to the appropriate place. But even just Google search, the search algorithm, has become so much more effective that, that Google is pulling up stuff, 14 pages deep, buried in your website that that somebody wrote in 2006. So it can be a big help if you've got a clean structure on the website to get them to the right information, although the risk is that if you also have older or less accurate information on the website, that can also be found and submitted or recommended by Google, which can lead, frankly, to confusion on the customer side, where they're seeing two different answers in their mind to the same question. But I think what my comment on Laura's response would be, a conversational AI in the form of a virtual assistant that is going to have contextual understanding of the customer, that simply says, what do you want to do today when they call, can create that opportunity to suggest that they may be able to resolve this without speaking to an agent. A lot of organizations will say, I'm Susie, the voice bot, and I'd be happy to help you find that. I think you're asking about this, and allow them to try it that way before getting to a live agent.
Indeed. Well, Daniel's asked a question, has made a tip, which is customers still use the phone for high priority or high severity issues. Use self-help or self-serve content for the easier topics, and keep assisted support available for the complex and high priority scenarios. That's quite an interesting one. Tamsin, I've noticed now that there's actually quite a number of like breakdown apps if your car breaks down, where you can actually go in through the app and you can just press the button and it says this is where I am. And a lot of people are taking that up, which you would have thought was a classic example of somewhere where you'd think people would want to phone.
Yeah, so they identified in that case, a use case where it is a high priority or high severity need, but they were able to inject some self-service in there to keep it quick. It didn't require a conversation, and it can send a GPS location. I quite like that. I like that option if my car broke down, but I quite like that tip. I think again, it's about for whatever your options that you're offering for your consumers, and every business is going to be a little different, going to need a little bit different blend. It's really about making it intuitive and proactively, educating the customer, whether it's on the website, the pop-up comes up if you're looking for assistance here. This is the channel that's going to be the best to help you, or these are the options that you've got.
So I think Darren agrees with Colin here. I believe the key is to integrate self-service options with live service, so that a client has the choice to go in and come back to a live agent if they're having difficulty. To get good use, always tell the clients what's in it for them when proposing self-service options, e.g. quicker access to info rather than waiting online. You can also suggest a live call client to give self-service a try for their next query, particularly if it was one that was resolved. I think customers often go where they think they'll get the fastest answer, so you need to test that out. Daniel said, customers do not know that a business sees them, customers want to know that a business sees them as an individual, not a case number. Consumers want to be recognized without endlessly repeating themselves. I guess this is one of the big problems with self-service. Make sure that the breadcrumbs obtained through self-service journey can be used by the agents during their assisted interaction. I see a lot of handoffs that don't quite work there. And question by Laura: we've implemented chatbots where we send customers an FAQ based off keywords in their message. How do we get them to start on our support page first, though? I guess this is Colin, a similar question to we had before.
Yeah, the most common application of the chatbots is just to leverage the SAQ and consume that data. If a pre-chat survey that asks them what they're looking to do, perhaps maybe a good step or a good first step. If this is support, if this is support related, then you can ask them if they've checked out the support page, or you can ask them to identify their support issue and then direct them to the support page and say, your answer is here, etc. But you need to understand what it is your customers are trying to do. Customers aren't always really good at communicating what it is they're attempting to do, and they will tend to gravitate to FAQs as their first step to try and figure out how to best navigate the organization.
Indeed. Well, certainly looking at some of the search queries might might give you an idea of how to position that. Well, before we jump across to Tamsin, what I'd like to do is run another poll. And this is to say, which sorts of self-service methods does your organization offer today? So is it a web self-service portal? Is it website FAQs? Is it things like automated phone menu or an IVR for the entire call? Is it a mobile app? Is it an automated or virtual assistant or a chatbot? Or if you've got some other methods you're offering, if you'd just like to pop that into the chat room. So if you'd like to just vote on that now, which self-service methods does your organization offer today? So we just share the results up on the screen. Looks like the most common one there, 71% website FAQs, 63% a web self-service portal, 37% a mobile app. That's quite low. 27% automated IVR, and only 14% have an automated or virtual assistant. Tams, any great surprises there?
Yeah, the mobile app seems a little low from what I would have expected. FAQs, there's other fans out there I can see in the crowd that quite like the FAQs on the website. Not surprised about the web self-service portal so much. That's pretty natural to put the self-service there. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so some very interesting feedback there. Well, probably a good time now to Tamsin then jump across to your thoughts on and some of the survey findings you've had about attitudes to self-service and automation.
Absolutely. Now, can you see my screen? Did I share?
We can indeed, yeah.
Oh, you can. Okay, very good. Let me switch over here. Very good. Well, I'd like to just say good day to everyone again, and thanks for joining us. My name is Tamsin. I work for NICE in Contact as a senior product marketing manager. I'm really excited to talk to you today because this is one of my favorite topics, to talk about more ways to elevate the experience in your contact center. And when I say elevate the experience, it's not just customers or consumers. I'm talking about the agents as well. So if you're all set, we're going to get talking about self-service strategies to elevate customer and agent experience at your contact center. I don't know about you, but when I hear the term self-service, I immediately think of a buffet. And seriously, in a recent blog post, I was writing about the importance of having a strategy when you stop by your local buffet restaurant. I'm a little bit passionate about this, having a bit of a strategy. And I think I think of buffets because there's just so many options. And when you think of self-service, there's just so many options, both for hot dishes at the buffet, but also for ways for businesses to offer self-service options. So when it comes to self-service in the contact center, I feel pretty much the same as I do about the buffet. You need a strategy. And, you know, self-service has the capability of shifting customer behaviors and transforming the workforce. And I believe that when it's well done, self-service has benefits in it for the business, for consumers, and for your advisors or agents. You really need that right game plan that involves strategy and technology. So it's a blend. And achieving customer experience, exceptional customer experience each and every time is tough. About 45% of companies offering self-service have shown increased traffic to their website, we found, and reduced phone inquiries, but that's not always so, as we saw in the chat. Certainly there are savings to be had from offering self-service options. A live agent chat costs $6 to $12 per interaction, they say, versus an automated interaction is about 25 cents. This data comes from Forrester. So big difference between paying for an automated interaction through self-service versus connecting with a live agent. $6 to $12 per interaction there. Self-service is definitely popular. I'm among the 62% of people that use FAQs on a regular basis. That's coming from Microsoft. It's popular, but it's not always a great experience, as we just talked about a bit. You know, about 48% of self-service systems pass zero information when moving from self-service to a live agent. The agent gets you on the call and you have to repeat your whole problem again, or you have to repeat your details. They don't have that context. So even though IVR makes up about 27% of contacts, very few of them we find today are offering a better experience than what an live agent gives you. So still, we're hearing a lot of chatter about the robots. If you've been on the internet or turned on the news or watched a Netflix episode of anything, pretty much you've heard about the robots. There's no doubt that AI and self-service, they're transforming our experience as consumers. And I say our experience because I'm not just talking about this outside customer. We're all consumers, and we're all consuming this automation on our cell phones and in our computers and in our daily lives. Many businesses they say that by 2020, this is only next year, that the vast majority of all our consumer transactions, about 85%, will be handled without a human agent. And Colin talked about his almost humanless mortgage renewal, right? That is crazy, very complex and personal information, and can be handled by automation. That's pretty incredible. So by 2020, we're saying that about 85% of our transactions will be handled without a human at all. And many businesses will use chatbots, and they will often use them on the customer side, but sometimes on the agent side as well, to assist on the agents, to provide an agent assistant, for example. And what I'd like to share with you today, NICE inContact has a CX transformation benchmark report. This is newly released data. It reveals a surprising gap between businesses and consumer perceptions. It contains some really critical takeaways for contact center leaders to know about, and I want to share some of those results with you today. So our latest research on customer experience is revealing a surprising gap between businesses and consumer perceptions, including a real disconnect on artificial intelligence that I wanted to highlight for you today. So despite the hype, we are finding in our research that artificial intelligence is not as broadly adopted by consumers, who are still a little skeptical. I want to share some of these insights with you today so that you can better understand and improve your customer service experience with knowledge that you may not have gained elsewhere. So this report will be available for you to download. I highly recommend that you check this out. And it's got some really great insights that will help you improve your services. I'm going to highlight some of those today. So let's look at consumer use and satisfaction. We found that most people still prefer to speak to a live agent over a chatbot. So the robots are not winning yet. People still prefer to talk to other people. It's a good sign, I think. Consumers are willing to wait until the bots get smarter. I think that for me anyway, I know that I've dealt with one of our chatbot from my cable company last week, and I was typing in my query. I thought, oh, this is fantastic. I don't even have to talk to anybody. I can just type this in. It's after hours. It wasn't a conversational chatbot. It didn't quite understand what I was saying to it. So I had to kind of back out of that and wait till the next morning to call about my inquiry to talk to a human. So, I'm willing to wait for it to get smarter. I know it's not quite there yet. For me, I'll give it a chance, but it's not always the right channel. And we're finding that consumers, while you do have a pocket of consumers that are very embracive of this new technology, there is still quite a bit of skepticism, and the use of automated assistants for customer service is still quite low. Certainly, we find that this has been quite consistent in the last couple of years that I've been working in this industry and contact center industry in the space, that consumers want more channels. And I know as a consumer, I feel the same way too. I've got my cell phone here with a bazillion apps on it and all kinds of options, and there's more and more channels and options being offered to us all the time. So consumers, we do want more channels, but we expect businesses to guide us to the channel that will give us the fastest possible resolution. So we don't want to waste a consumer's time typing in a chatbot that's not going to understand if there's another way to get the resolution for that customer. So it's important to keep this in mind for your self-service strategy. When we talk about omni-channel options, that doesn't necessarily mean more channels. It means really a seamless, integrated experience across channels. And for consumers, we're finding that AI-powered self-service is not quite the crowd pleaser yet. But I'd like to talk about some strategy and some tips that you can take away for your self-service strategy that might help you to put this research and these findings into some order. So some self-service strategy tips. For self-service that delivers the largest benefits for all, and by that I mean the business, the consumer, and the advisor, I want you to keep these things in mind. The right game plan really blends both strategy and technology. It's a two-sided coin, and we did see a bit of this. I thought that was great in the chat as well, that people are understanding that this is a blended across your channels, your omni-channel options. So you want the right game plan, and what we mean by that is agents need to be equipped with the context on every customer contact. So whether the customer contact is happening through a self-service channel or an agent-assisted channel, the self-service technology, the system, needs to be smart enough and equipped to have that context on the customer, to have accurate information, and to be effective and capable of moving that customer to seamlessly moving them over to a live agent if that's necessary. So that's elevating to a live agent. The agents, they want self-service systems to handle the repetitive tasks that really burn them out. But they need to know that they can rely on the self-service to trust it, to always have the most accurate, up-to-date information. And then even better, if that self-service can take that information, that context, if it's being elevated to the agent, and provide that to the agent, so when the customer is elevated to them, they have that full context. There's many ways to approach self-service, and there is not one strategy. It's really about finding your perfect blend of self-service and agent-assisted options. I can say I would caution not to be too liberal. Some organizations will implement self-service anywhere they can, just because they can. And you want to be applying self-service to situations that can be easily predicted and designed with a precise awareness of the self-service shortcomings or its inabilities. Self-service can't do everything, okay? So you want to make sure that you're applying it to areas where it does make sense. Put self-service in the channels and locations where your customers are going to naturally and intuitively go and look for it. And you can have pop-ups on the screen to say, hey, there is an FAQ here, or hey, you can elevate to a live agent. You have these options. So putting in those kind of cues. And just remember that consumers, we expect businesses to guide us to the channel that's going to give us the fastest possible resolution. So you just want to really make sure that your self-service options are intuitive and proactive. It's okay when self-service isn't the best channel. Just make that clear and suggest what the ideal path is to a resolution so the consumer can just get that quickly. So context is everything, and understanding where the consumer is coming from and offering them recommendations for where they can go to get what they need is really, really important. And finally, nailing that transition. We talked about nailing that transition from self-service to agent-assisted service. Remember that your agents need to be equipped with the context, further contact with the customer, whether it happens through self-service or that agent-assisted channel. So the must-haves for your self-service and nailing that transition, you want to make it seamless. You want to personalize where you can. The customer wants you to know them when you get them on the call, know what their situation was, what the context was, what their request was through coming from self-service, so they don't have to repeat themselves. All of the information and statistics that I shared with you, actually much more than what I've shared with you today, it's all available for download. So by sharing these insights with you today, my goal is to kind of help you discover what you may not know about your consumers' perception of their customer experience and self-services, and what changes that you can make to kind of bridge the gap. So I highly recommend that you learn more by downloading these reports. The 2019 global findings we have from our CX transformation benchmark, brand new. Highly recommend you take a look and see what else is in this report, because there's fantastic research we've done. And finally, I would like to tell you that I work for Nice in Contact, who is today's webinar sponsor. We're really passionate at our company about providing technology that helps you elevate your customer's experience. You may have heard about CX1 before. We're the most complete, unified, and intelligent cloud customer experience platform. We provide one unified experience for your agents, cutting-edge tools for contact centers that make winning customer experience strategy dreams really possible and help you stay one step ahead. And I'd like to just thank you very much for your time and having me back again to talk to you. Please check out the newly released 2019 Nice in Contact CX Transformation Benchmark. Look me up on LinkedIn so we can be friends, and I look forward to seeing more of these tips and ideas in the chat. If you do get the top, I'd pick the chocolates. So thank you everyone for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Tamsin. I think some great content there. Lots of transactions will be handled without a customer. I'm not sure it's going to be 85% by next year, which is what Gartner is predicting, but it will be sizable. Very interesting. Big gap between business and consumer perceptions on artificial intelligence. Thought it was very interesting. Only 90% of people would prefer to speak to someone rather than using a chatbot. And 66% of people don't think it would be a chatbot will make their query easier. So I think there's a long way to go on chatbots there. And really, self-service is all about a blended approach. Find the blend of self-service and agent assist with the right degree of handoff. I think some great ones there. But I almost wonder whether artificial intelligence is best off not perhaps in a chatbot, but is actually in the search engine. On your website is almost the best way. Use the artificial intelligence to find the right sort of FAQs, the right sort of stuff, which would probably make things a lot easier. And maybe if it can flag up to you where there's gaps, would be quite a good way of doing that. Well, if you'd like to have a demonstration of the Nice in Contact solutions, now is the time there. And I guess particularly in terms of how the self-service interacts with the assist and the contextual handoff. So if you'd like to see a demonstration of that, if you'd like to put that into the search box now, would be a good time. I'm sure Tamsin would be only too happy to arrange that for you. So let's just go and have a look at what's been happening here within the chat room. So Barry said, as a tip, measure how many of your customers, if you reach your contact center, search for a self-service resolution first. This will help you to understand how much your customers want self-service and what they aren't able to find answers to. Colin, I think that's a good approach there to look for if you like, where's the failure demand there?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great tip. I've seen research that says 60% of your customers have been to your website before they call, and actually 40% of them are on your website when they place the call. So being able to understand what that search is, being able to recognize a customer on the website and being able to track them through to the contact center can allow you to see where those holes are in your FAQs or in the information which you're providing online. So I think that's a great suggestion by Barry.
John has said, think native mobile apps aren't being replaced by responsive web apps. Customers don't want to download your app onto their phone in case they want to use your service in the future, but rather get the solution what they need when they need it via a web app. I guess this is instead of having to download a mobile app, just make your website very mobile friendly, so it's very easy to use. Tamsin, I think that's quite a good approach in thinking mobile when it comes to website.
Yeah, I quite like that too. It's when you're looking for, I need a solution. Oh, they've got an app. Oh, I got to download something. I can't just go to the web. You've got this whole. You got to go to the app store and download to get that functionality to deal with that company. I kind of agree with that. That we're seeing more of that. The more robust websites rather than the apps.
On a similar theme, Richard says we have a give us your feedback section on our mobile app and website, so that customers can tell us when things haven't gone right or if they want to access more functionality. This is then shared in strategy meetings to prioritize what to work on next. I think it's a great idea. Laura said, if possible, when a customer calls in, have your CRM system show what FAQs have already been viewed so you can determine if there are problems with the FAQ, for instance, it needs updating. But you can also see what other issues they have already addressed, so you can have better assist them as a whole. Colin, this I guess ties in with the, bringing the context through when people have come off the web and into the contact center.
Yeah, and that's been a perennial problem, that you do everything in the IVR and then you get to an agent who makes you do it all again. Today we are seeing the capability to actually bring that data, specifically what Laura has suggested, to know what websites they visited online, to know what FAQs they may have listened to, and even if they've had a chat or a chat gone through a chat bot before getting to an agent, being able to have that entire transcript. So the technology is out there today to do exactly this, to have that understanding, end-to-end understanding of that interaction before it reaches an agent, which certainly equips the agent to help the customer more quickly and more effectively than was possible without that technology.
And Richard has also said, get agents involved when working on new self-service options. Include them in focus groups, etc., as they know what customers want and how it would make their lives easier too. Don't just go off what you think customers and agents want. Tamsin, I think getting agents involved in the whole design process is a very sensible idea in almost any contact center initiative.
Absolutely. I'm all about the transparency and respecting the agents, and involving them in that process. But they're the ones on the front line who will be talking to the customer who just went through the self-service options that you offered. They need to know what that customer went through, what the options were available to them. They need to have that awareness. And even better is if the self-service system sends the agent that information and provides it to them during the call, so that they have that context as well.
Indeed. Well, Colin, there's an interesting comment in from Sven, said, if you're using NLU, which I guess is natural language understanding, try to make the whole conversation natural. I guess that's part of natural language. So the customer does not feel like an idiot when only saying yes or no all the time. I guess it's easy to, yes or no should be fairly easy to recognize, but make it more natural.
Yeah, well, who would want unnatural language, right? So I think that, the yes or no's, we're all trained in. When we're designing IVRs, historically, we kept it short and simple. Are you calling about this or are you calling about that? So yes, no, yes, no. Today, the conversational AI can really understand context. So for example, a retailer we work with, when you get to, when you come into their phone system and come into their conversational virtual assistant in the IVR, it's saying, so what do you want to do today? It's already done a data dep and looked at the CRM to see if you've got an order pending, a return in process, and they aren't quite there, but it's conversational. The key is tell me in your own words what you want to do, and we'll figure out how to get you where you need to go. Or we'll get you the information. So I think we're moving away from that yes no dichotomy, and and then I think conversation is a key. So,
well, we've got time for just a couple of more tips. Alberto Quintero has said, add images to your self-service options, representative of the choice of self-service you're offering. So I certainly think it's a great idea to add images to your self-service. And Lisa said, don't assume only certain types of customers would choose self-service. Just because a customer would prefer not to use self-service now doesn't mean they'll have the same attitude in a few years' time. Well, we've reached the top of the hour now. I'd just like to say, what did you like best about today's webinar? Let's have a look at today's winning tip. And that tip comes in from Dennis, who says, we have to remember that self-service is still about service. And that's the one that we shouldn't lose sight of. If we do not understand our client expectations, we'll be unable to provide satisfactory self-service options unless they'll come back to a live person. I expect the implementation of a self-service option should be constantly adjusted to meet better client expectations. So if you'd like to fill in the survey as you leave the as you leave the webinar, the replay will be available in about an hour's time, and you can. We're going to be back next Thursday when we look at the new rules of customer experience. Just like to thank our two speakers, Colleen Taylor from the Taylor Reach Group. Thank you.
You're most welcome. It was a pleasure.
And Tamsin Dolan from Nice in Contact. Thank you, Tamsin.
Thanks for having me back. It's a pleasure.
And thank you to everyone in the audience. We're back next Thursday when we're looking at the new rules for customer experience. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye.
Thanks all.
Thanks.